on behalf of all the faculty for a wonderful new year, good health and joy to you and your family. And as someone said in the chat box, high quality dissertations from everybody in the GABA group. It's a pleasure to have you here. This evening's webinar is on purpose and research questions. And I just want to do a quick check with everybody and ask the question, how many of you already have completed the draft of your research questions? Just give me a Y for yes or an N for no, and we'll see how all of you are doing. Yeah, it looks like the vast majority of you are well along the way. Good. As we talk about purpose and research questions this evening, I'm going to ask primarily Dr. DeVore and Dr. Lee, as we go along, if you would monitor questions, particularly on the qualitative and quantitative sides, and try to answer them in the chat box as we go along, or stop me if you think we need to pause and explore an area in more detail. The choice of a dissertation topic should be some kind of interest or a motivation that you have. That motivation is usually a problem or issue that you feel needs to be addressed or solved. And as you see here, Criswell says that the purpose statement is the most crucial statement in a research study. It is really your lighthouse that guides you through the research process. The purpose statement aims to answer the question, why should we care? Or in other words, why should we be interested in the research problem or the issue? The problem under study is usually based around individuals, organizations, or societal issues. And in most cases, it's a problem that you are really passionate about and you want to find a solution for. Typically, it's an issue that you've experienced, that you lived through, or one that you've encountered through your work or other professional life that you want to make a contribution about in terms of your research. The purpose statement tells the reader what the primary goal is of your research and succinctly creates direction, scope, and means of data collection. The purpose statement should stand alone and not require further explanation for the reader to understand the direction and intent of your research. Many times, as the faculty are reading purpose statements, we find that the researcher includes another paragraph or so after the purpose statement, clarifying and explaining what the purpose is all about. A good purpose statement should not require any further statement, but should stand on its own legs and be clear in terms of the intent of the research. The purpose statement is a declarative sentence. And declarative sentences are used to convey information or to make statements. The purpose statement is a single declarative sentence that states the controlling idea of the research project. It defines the topic, the intent, and focus of your study and suggests what the body of research will cover. For example, a purpose statement might be the purpose of this mixed method study was to identify and describe how department store supervisors can use Blake's 4 planning strategies to improve employee productivity. And all the elements of the purpose statement are contained in there, but clearly as a declarative sentence. The research questions are directly aligned with and from the purpose statement. They are the specific questions that must be answered in order to understand the problem and answer the purpose statement. Each variable in the purpose statement should have its own research question. If there are 3 variables, then you would expect to find 3 research questions. If a research question isn't aligned with the purpose, it really shouldn't be asked. For example, if the purpose of this quantitative study to identify the 6 most important elements of blended coaching as perceived by school site administrators in Los Angeles County. You would expect questions directly related to the variables of blended coaching. You would not expect a question that asked the respondents about job satisfaction or whether or not they plan to stay in their current position. Many times as we're looking at research questions, we find suddenly an outlier that the researcher had a great interest in, but it's not clearly connected back to the purpose statement. Those should be eliminated from research questions. Criswell also suggests that the purpose statement is the heart of the dissertation and tells the reader what the primary goal of the research is. This graphic shows that the purpose statement is bounded by on one side and aligned with the problem statement, and on the other side with the significance of the study. And those three need to align perfectly. The problem statement is clearly set forth what the problem is with citations and grounding it in literature that supports that this really is a problem, while the significance builds an argument at the worth of the problem and why it should be studied. It asks the question, does it explore an important issue? Why is it important to the field? Does it fill a gap in the knowledge base? Does it convince the reader that there's something there that is in need of study? So if you look at the connection between those three, and again align then with below the literature, methods, the population and sample, and data collection. So as the proposals are being evaluated and reviewed, that kind of alignment is looked for, particularly in your proposal when you get to chapters 1, 2, and 3. This is another way to go back, and I want to reinforce some of the comments that Dr. White made about literature, because what this shows is that purpose and research questions first are connected to literature. You begin by reading in a general way to clarify what the topic is, and in this case the topic might be computer games. And you read some more, begin to develop the research problem, and that may emerge as computer game violence. And as you read further and develop the purpose statement, it can evolve into computer game violence in children. And finally, to the most specific, into research questions, how does violence in computer games affect children? But I want to really underscore that all of this is built on a foundation of the literature that you've reviewed and the reading that you've done. This is another graphic in a way at looking at your research topic to make sure that you have alignment. And for those of you who are still looking at how you're going to clarify your research topic, this is a way to help you do that, which begins with a broad topic like women's health, and then narrowing the topic to women and cancer, and then focusing the topic to women smokers and breast cancer, and finally into the big question that you want to research: is there an association between cigarette smoking and breast cancer? Well, those are 4 examples of the kind of thinking through from topic to research question that you go through in developing a clear alignment with the purpose statement. It's imperative that the reader who is not experienced in your field of study can understand the topic and intent of the research. There are some styles that allow a narrative following the purpose statement that explains what is meant, but that isn't the Brandman style. The purpose statement should stand alone, be clear, concise, and specific. Some common ways that of phrases that are used in the purpose statement to begin with are: the purpose of this mixed method study was, or the purpose of this case study was twofold, or the purpose of this phenomenological study was to describe. So if you follow the formula we're going to share with you this evening, you will end up with a clear, concise, and specific purpose statement. There are 2 basic research methods that will guide the structure of the purpose statement. The first is qualitative approach. This purpose statement contains infinitives and verbs related to the emergent nature of the research. And the qualitative purpose statement contains words like to describe, to discover, locate, discover, to develop, to understand, to explore. An example might be the purpose of this study was to explore parent stories regarding internet communications with teachers about their students in high schools located in Southern California. When we talk about explore, that means it is a difficult area to collect data on, and in most cases requires interaction with the participants in the study. And Dr. DeVore is noting that prefer past tense because the dissertation is published in past tense, and yes, that's a very good suggestion, because if it's not in past tense, at some point when you get your proposal, you're going to need to convert it anyway. So we recommend that you begin stating it in past tense, from the very beginning. Quantitative purpose statements use infinities and verbs that indicate prediction and comparison. Quantitative purpose statements use words like to examine the relationship, to compare, to test, to identify, or to determine. Again, an example might be the purpose of this quantitative correlational study was to determine the relationship between teacher job satisfaction and the teacher perceived leadership traits of principals within school districts in Sacramento County. In some cases, both methods are combined into mixed methods research, and we'll talk about that a little later on. A quantitative purpose statement clearly states both the independent and dependent variables and their relationship. Now, the purpose includes who the participants are and the geographic location where the study is conducted. Again, an example might be elementary special education teachers working in West Contra Costa and Alameda County, SELPAs. Identifies who the participants are and geographically where they're located. So again, the purpose statement identifies the variables, the relationship among the variables, the participants, and the site or location where the research is being conducted. Now, this is a template that the faculty has used and suggests that you use it as a guideline. If you do, it will help you put the purpose statement or check it to make sure it's in the correct format. It guides you through the process as you fill in the blanks of the purpose statement. If you follow it, it will truly be in the correct format. While the template is all one statement, there are research projects that are more complex, and additional sentences will be needed to explain the purpose statement. Too many times, researchers tend to combine 4 or 5 ideas all in one lengthy sentence that makes up a paragraph, and it leaves it without clarity. So the suggestion is that if there's more than one element, then you go to a second sentence which says something like, in addition, it was the purpose of this study to, or if you had a third, the last element of this study is, or finally the purpose of the study is, but some way to distinguish and clarify the different parts rather than trying to jam everything into one extra long paragraph as a purpose statement. This is an example of a quantitative purpose statement. See, it's clearly identified as a quantitative study by using the term degree, which suggests that the reader is collecting numerical data. Next, it identifies the participants as middle school teachers, and that it is looking for their perceptions about process, content, product, and class community, which are the independent variables. Indifferentiated instruction, which are the moderator variable, and finally, improving student achievement, which are the dependent variables. So it has all the pieces for a very clear, concise, quantitative purpose statement that be understood by any reader. Now, quantitative purpose statements usually begin with statements like how many, how often, how frequently, to what extent, what is, what are. Those are clear indicators that you have a quantitative research question. So the first example up there might be, what are the most important factors that influence the career choices of American university students? Or how many calories do American men and women consume per day? And the one we discussed earlier says to what degree do middle school teachers use differentiated instruction. So I want to pause at this point and then just ask if on quantitative research questions, if you have questions that we need to address at this point before we move on to qualitative. I think Dr. DeVore is responding to a question. No, you do not need to identify what kind of variable it is within the purpose statement. Okay. Then let's move on to a qualitative purpose statement. Qualitative purpose statement clearly states the central phenomena, the participants of the study, and where the research is to be conducted. The central phenomenon is a fact, occurrence, or a circumstance that can be observed or is observable. The phenomena is typically unusual or difficult to understand or explain, and therefore requires qualitative research to create understanding. Quantitative studies can be explained by good quantitative data and statistical analysis. Qualitative studies dig into those things that are less clear and fuzzy and help bring understanding to it. The qualitative purpose statements use words like describe, understand, develop, or discover. And the words support a purpose that is more open to exploration of the research topic. Now, there are a number of advantages to qualitative research that can be considered when you're looking at your approach to your study. They do allow for an in-depth examination of a topic, and they do use subjective information as opposed to hard data, and they examine complex questions that could be impossible to answer with quantitative methods. And they deal with value-laden questions. For example, how do doctors understand the benefit of free medical treatment for chronic drug users? So it allows the researcher to explore some complex issues, and in many cases there are societal issues that may be controversial. This now is a template for a qualitative purpose statement. And again, if you follow this, you will be on the right track. It'd be very helpful for you to draft that statement. So the purpose of this, and that's stating whether it's biographical, phenomenological, grounded theory, ethnographic, historical case study, etc., was to understand, describe, develop, and discover, and then the statement of what the focus is of your study for and that is the list of your participants who are going to be in the study. And that will get you to a pretty clean, concrete purpose statement. Now, I'm going to suggest something to any of you considering a qualitative study that Dr. Lee has suggested many times in his work on qualitative research, and that is to go to Patton's book and go to specifically check pages 132 and 133, I believe are the right ones. It'll provide you a list of the kinds of qualitative research that could be considered. And go through that section of the book and examine that to, Dr. Lee saying the new book is page 97 to 99, so I have the old book, thank you. But that will give you a strong rationale to examine in developing your methodology that aligns with your purpose statement. and that you will have that to do in your methodology. So that's a great resource. So check, and as Achille saying, the supplement pages go deeper into each method. So that is a section, if you're doing qualitative research, that you want to check carefully and make sure it supports your purpose statement. Qualitative research questions, they begin with the most general question you could ask, followed by sub-questions, which divide the central question into more specific topical questions. And usually you want to have a limited number. Good qualitative wording for these questions begin with words such as how or what. They tell the reader what you're attempting to discover, to generate, to explore. They ask what happened to help craft your description. They ask people about the meaning of what happened over time. And in their own words, you're exploring a lived experience of the participants in the study. Important to in some cases, design those questions carefully, and as you're choosing a population, to make sure that you have a population that can respond in such a way that gives you information about the lived experience that will directly answer your purpose statement. So a type of question might be, what role do you believe that spirituality had in your cancer treatment and remission? Or a follow-up question might be, how would you describe spirituality as an element of your cancer treatment? These are the kinds of open-ended questions that lead to the development of scripts that guide the dialogue and conversation between researcher and participant. So here's an example of a qualitative purpose statement. The purpose of this phenomenological study was understanding of high school student interpretation of altruism, society roles, and school culture. So the important part was the developing an understanding of and interpretation of, clearly going to get the lived experiences of the participants. This was followed by the first question, the general question, and the sub-questions. And the big question was, how do high school students understand and interpret altruism? Followed by then the sub-questions that were part of the data collection process. How do you observe students, teachers, administrators helping each other at your school? It could be, do you have any stories to share that are examples of that taking place at your campus? Can you tell me about a time when you experienced this going on in your campus? So those kinds of questions are developed in the interview process and the dialogue with a participant in this study. Let's go backwards a second. One thing we need to mention is that if any of you are considering a study that are dealing with high school students or anyone who is 18 years of age or under, that in the consent process that will require both a parent consent and a student assent. So in case of older students who are under 18, the parent cannot give away their right. So you would need both consents and assent to engage those students. So mixed methods. Mixed methods is a way of collecting and analyzing, mixing quantitative and qualitative data. So it is a design that is very, very helpful and provides you the opportunity to collect two different kinds of data, each one supporting the other. It is an area where there are 6 different kinds of mixed methods. Some would involve collecting more quantitative data and less qualitative data, or more qualitative data and less quantitative data. It's particularly helpful when you want a population or a sample of people where you're unsure whether or not you can get a large return on a quantitative survey or data collection. Using mixed methods allows you to then use a smaller sample when you combine it with qualitative interviews or focus groups to triangulate the data in a mixed method study. So many times it's a very good method to use and provide strong data as an outcome of that study. Here's an example of a mixed method study. The purpose of this mixed method study was to identify and describe the unique needs of twins enrolled in center-based preschools and the program practices that experts and practitioners perceive to be important to address those needs. This goes on, and want to use this to carry this example all the way through to the literature review to show how these align. So the research questions for this study were, what do experts identify as the unique needs of twins? What program practices specific to twins enrolled in center-based preschool do experts and practitioners believe would be most important? Are there differences in perceptions of the experts and practitioners regarding the program practices that meet the unique needs of twins enrolled in center-based preschools? So you have the research questions, and then in this case, this researcher laid out 5 general areas that they felt needed to be reviewed in the literature would support both the purpose and research questions. So in this case, there were 5. The research core or theme were the unique needs of twins. And the next variables were center-based preschools, program practices, and then supported by early childhood pedagogical practices and early childhood policies and guidelines. And that alignment goes even further then to see how this all fits together. The kind of thing that we would expect to see as you begin a Chapter 2 review of the literature is the first part is telling the reader what it is that's going to be covered in this chapter. And you can easily see that this description has 8 sections, and in those 8 sections that the researcher has covered all of those things that are essential to understanding this topic and providing a good grounding in the research, to proceed with their topic. Question was this: is there a slide to show us an example of what we're to bring to immersion? Hang on to that question, and let's answer that as we get to the end, but don't let me forget to come back to that. This particular research project resulted into a book that was published in 2010, Handbook for Early Childhood Professionals. So in this case, this researcher followed through what we were talking about earlier in taking a topic that she was extremely interested in because she was working in the area of preschools and early childhood, and she was a mother of twins, and all of her twin daughters had twins, so she had a vested interest at a personal level in studying twins. So it is a good example of how you're taking a very special interest that you may have right through your research and use it in your profession. This is a checklist as you're checking through your purpose statement to check whether or not you have key identifier words that are used to signal the reader, such as the purpose of this qualitative or quantitative mixed method study. Have you talked about the central phenomena that you're going to explore and explicit about that? Are the variables clearly defined? And that doesn't mean that you identify them as independent or dependent variables, but they're clearly in the statement. And what the intent of the study is, either analyze, determine, identify, evaluate. So that the words are delineating, specifically what it is you're going to do. And then participants in the study, the sample and population. Those later on are going to be key areas, but areas you need to be thinking about now. And many times researchers struggle with moving from the general population to a target population to a sampling group. And then the geographical area, and many times that is key because you can't take on all of the United States or all of California, and it may be taking a bite out of one area like Riverside and San Diego County, or Sacramento and Lono County as one piece, and those being reflective of the larger state. Words are well chosen. The statements are free from contradictions, free of jargon, and don't use any more words than are necessary so that the statement is concise. And the writing is clear and flows so the reader easily understands it, and the researcher. And finally, to check again and again and again that the purpose statement is aligned with the problem statement and the significance of the study. So we're going to then stop at this point and go back to the question earlier, that is there a slide to show us an example of what are we bringing to immersion? The answer is no, there's not a slide in this presentation, but following our discussion here, you're going to be adjourning to your section groups with your instructor, and that would be a good discussion at that time of what that assignment's going to look like. Question is, what happens if you narrow the site but your participants move during the process? That happens occasionally, but not often. There are times that you just simply need to understand that research is not a perfect process, and as you may get partway through and you have to back up and redesign a portion of it. But I would think carefully about your participants from the very beginning so that you have investigated far enough that you know that you have a good group of respondents and can include enough people that you have access to in your study. What day you're presenting, that is the first day of immersion. And in those, you'll be divided into two groups in those sessions, and each one of you will come with a slide presentation that tells about your topic and presents your purpose and research questions. I believe you received an earlier memo, I think it came from Dr. White, and Dr. White, you might correct me if I'm wrong, that was sent out to everyone with that specific assignment. Is that correct?
Yes, everyone received the course at a glance back in December. Okay. And I went over all of that also in my course at a glance, or my course overview.
So at those sessions, at the immersion and that colloquium, you will present your purpose and research questions, and then both the instructors who are there and the other participants, your fellow students, will have opportunity to provide feedback and comment and share with you as part of that discussion. Other questions? And I'm not seeing any coming up. I would ask generally to Dr. DeVore, Dr. Lee, in terms of quantitative and qualitative, any additional comments or questions you thought of during this discussion that we need to go further into.
This is Doug, Dr. Larick. Nothing that I have to offer in that respect. I thought it was an excellent presentation. I don't know if you wanted to show that slide again where you actually highlighted the different words of the purpose. I think there was a question about that. And I want to remind the students that are on this live webinar that are going to meet with me afterwards that I'll be logging in to my virtual classroom as soon as this is over.
Yes, that was the last thing on my agenda here is to remind everyone you'll be logging in with your instructors right after this on their Adobe Connect room. I'm assuming that all instructors have let your group know about your Adobe Connect room. If not, you might want to type it into the chat box just in case. Catherine asked, how important is it for us to have a dissertation chair in mind or confirmed? There isn't any panic about it at this point. Some people like to do it early. It's not necessary. Another question that comes up at times is, do I need to have a chair who has expertise in my content area? Not necessarily. It would be good to have somebody on your committee, the committee member who might have content expertise or have expertise in the methodology, whether or not it be qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methods. But more importantly, to connect with somebody that you're going to work well with. Okay, I see Brett. Dr. Capolino let us know she would not be in attendance tonight. Okay. I assume that she has scheduled another time with you, and we'll pick it up later. And I know that Dr. Ryder is gone doing a presentation at a conference, and that's where Dr. Capolino is. So those two groups may not be meeting. Dr. Guzman says his group is meeting tomorrow night. Okay. Any other adjustments or changes in group meetings?
Dr. Lee, if you could type my my Adobe Connect information in the box for Brian, that would be a big help. I can't get to it right now.
I just put it in, Pat. I think it's correct if you look at it.
Oh, thanks a lot. Okay, super. Appreciate it, Doug.
Okay, any other questions or comments before we adjourn to the other Adobe rooms? Dr. Hightower's group is meeting this evening. My group is meeting this evening.
Mine as well.
Okay. Dr. Lee, yours is meeting this evening. Okay, well thank you all, and we look forward to seeing your research projects. It's always exciting from this end for all the faculty to see all of the different really unique and creative ideas that you come up with for research. We look forward to receiving them and working with you as a partner in the process. So enjoy. Again, Happy New Year, and we'll see you all in a week.